morning, everyone. And for those who are watching us on a different time zone, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And for those who are new in this platform, I'd like to just introduce myself. My name is Mary Lynn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CTS. And we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co creating, contextualizing, and customizing programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony Mobile, Crew Life UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, Legato, and Shell, to name a few. And the reason why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, is because we would like to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt to the next normal, those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a hybrid team, and for those of you who are afraid that you can't keep your team and business. So, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead more effectively in any situation, join us in these interventions. And today, it's my great pleasure to introduce our leader. His name is Jovan Medrano, and he's an entrepreneur's coach. He helps people succeed in business by helping them develop a strong entrepreneurial mindset. He is a serial entrepreneur and has been a full time entrepreneur in Singapore since 2014. He is also an ICF certified coach and a certified NLP coach and trainer. So, without so much further ado, I'd like to invite Jovan. Hello, Jovan.
Hi, hello Marilyn. Thank you for inviting me into your platform.
Thank you also for taking time to have this interview with us. And of course, just to give a heads up or just to inform our audience, how do we get to know each other? We actually have a common friend. Hi, Perla. If you're watching, say hi to us as well. So, and she introduced us and created a group for us to discover how we can actually help each other and collaborate with each other. And in our first meeting, how long did we talk? 3 hours, almost 3 hours. And
Yes,
so
yes.
and I invited him to, I think this is like one of the first collaborations that we can do,
Mm.
and hopefully it's gonna be a long-term collaboration as well, moving forward. So yeah, so without so much further ado, I'd like to start with, I because I have 8 questions for you or even more. So I'd
Mm.
like to
Sure.
start by asking you to please share with you your leadership experiences, and if you have influencers that you look up to, and even a leadership style, or a favorite leadership style that brought you where you are today.
Okay. So first of all, welcome to all your viewers and people who will be watching this in the future as well. I think it's great that you are here and learning about leadership. Wanting to develop yourself. Because like me and Marilyn, we are here because we are passionate about helping people
Yes,
in terms of their own personal development. So I think that's the thing that we are very much aligned, and that's why we decided to collaborate as well. So,
exactly.
so yeah. To answer your question, I think I heard. So it's in three parts. So first one is kind of my own leadership experience, and then second is the influencers
Mhm.
in my life, and then what's the third one again? Sorry, the
If you
leadership
have
style.
a favorite leadership style that
Ah,
you are
okay.
using.
Correct. I would say my leadership experience is really a journey, and I think it's still ongoing. It's a work in progress. Like I'm always learning and developing myself when it comes to my own leadership or my knowledge and skills about leadership. And it all really started, when I was still an employee, rising from the bottom rank. So I started like a assistant engineer, and worked my way up until I became like a senior supervisor, in that sense, that position. And I also moved from, I used to stay in Philippines, then I moved to Singapore, and I learned a lot throughout the journey. And from there, then I moved into entrepreneurship, which was 2009 2010. And that's a totally different ball game. And especially I started off a business working with family, and then we hired people. And so I was responsible to a lot of things. And so I grew up very very fast. I failed, and then I corrected, and then redid it again, corrected myself, to become a better leader. And I've been an entrepreneur now for 13, 14 years. And through that journey, I've started different businesses. I had a business where I was, the only person. So it's called a solopreneur, right? So I was a solopreneur, and then I had to basically lead myself, in order to be able to become more productive, to become more effective, because I needed to do a lot of things by myself. So those kind of like my experience when it comes to leadership. And now that I am in my journey of becoming a certified coach, or not that I am a certified coach, but my journey of like really committing into this work, in terms of coaching and training. And it's a different level of leadership as well, because coaching is not your traditional kind of leader wherein it's one way, like you just tell people, oh, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. And this is something that I can probably explain later. But coaching is really more of a relationship, that kind of dancing together with whoever is my client. So it's totally different way of leading. Yeah, so that's kind of like my experience. It's still a journey, so I would say. And then when it comes to people who influence me, there's also a few because I have been to two different worlds, right? Being an employee and then being an entrepreneur. So, but I can clearly remember one person who really influenced me while I was still working as an employee was my one of my boss. So he's Japanese, and the way he views things was totally different from my own point of view. And because of that, I actually learned a lot from him. Especially becoming more effective, using my time wisely. Because last time it's all about camaraderie, right? Like we would go to a customer, like a lot of people, like my colleagues, we would go together because it's fun. And then my boss would ask, but do you really need to be there? Are you adding value? And then that's the first time I heard that term. Are you adding value? I was like, yeah, I'm just there because I want to hear the stories and just talk to my colleagues. But in essence, I wasn't really adding, my presence wasn't really adding value to the client. And so then I started thinking, yeah, I'm not actually using my time effectively. And so I learned that from him. But interestingly, while I was thinking about him, so there's other people in the company that um, I wouldn't say influence me when it comes to leadership, but there are also leader or bosses in while I was still employed that I didn't like how they did things, and they also influenced me in terms of like my leadership, because it, it made me think that this is not the type of leader I want to be, if you get what I'm saying. I think that's important, right? Like in terms of awareness, when we know exactly what we don't want and then what we want, right? So definitely those experiences helped me as well. Of course, when I became an entrepreneur, it's like and you know this, Marilyn, because you're also an entrepreneur. We are in a silo, right? Like sometimes it can be a really a lonely journey. And so what I did was look for external influencers when it comes to leadership. So like, Tony Robbins, Richard Branson, these people like international and also local. So I attended programs in order to find mentors and also my own coaches in my journey. And so that's kind of like more of for the entrepreneurship. So there are a lot of people. Every aspect of my journey, whenever I grow, then I would look for um, an influencer or a mentor that would fit where I was in my life. So that's how I did it. And then I think lastly, in life in general, of course, I would love to share this because I think my parents, I haven't like given much credit to them, but definitely my parents is the foundation of how I formed a very good sense of what leadership is. Like my dad, my mom, how they took care of us, how they led the family, and I'm forever grateful for them as well. So those are, I think those three things as an influencer. And then the last one, and I know I'm answering this very long. uh, the last one is my leadership style. And now this is I can speak to you and tell you in your audience this now, because now that I am kind of like a very experienced coach already, is a lot about like more of like a coaching style, meaning
Yeah.
instead of just giving direction, I look into what would really help that person. And so that's kind of like the coaching style that I have incorporated. Sorry, the leadership style that I incorporated, which is more of like coaching style.
Coaching style. Thank you. And I'm not surprised, being you being a coach as well, and that's the reason why you actually work on your journey towards your coaching certification. It's mainly because you understand the power of being a coaching leader
Yes.
as well. And I really appreciate you bringing us through your experience. Like what I got from you is really like, how important the role of parents are in
Oh,
our
yes.
in the life of our children, because as a parent we actually like, they observe us, they see us, they hear us, and it's important for us to be a model, a role model for them, um,
Mm,
as definitely in one way or another, whether good or bad, we will definitely like somehow like affect how our children would think and grow in such a way, right? And again, as you've mentioned, like the experience of being a leader in a corporate world is quite different from entrepreneurship, but I'm
yes.
just yeah, I'm just really blessed that when I started entrepreneurship, I've always like, because one of my strength is connectedness according to Gallup, and that's the
Mm,
reason why my route, or the route that I get into being an entrepreneur, is really so much more on joining communities, masterminds, mentorship programs, and that's the reason why I'm so lucky. I have a lot of communities that I join. So it's always like, everyone encouraging, supporting, collaborating with each other. So I'm just kind of lucky around that. But yeah, it has a tendency of like, I always hear that a lot, the tendency of like, you know being into silos, or like being
feeling lonely
lonely.
and yeah.
Yeah, lonely at the top, right? Even in the corporate world, I always hear that, because the higher you go, or you move the ladder, right, the more like people hesitate to give feedback to you. And so it's like kind of difficult for you to hear those comments, feedback, or like
Mm,
usual communications you used to have, when you were not a leader or at the top, right? So before I ask you the next question, I'd like to acknowledge our audience, and please do join us. This is not about me and Jovan having this conversation, but also join us. And Desmond Chong here says good morning. He's watching from YouTube. JB Medrano, good morning and hi, Coach Jovan. Um, Prakash says, hi, Marilyn and Jovan. Welcome, Jovan. Happy to know you are an ACC coach from ICF. And
Yes,
yes, it's
this
a
is my badge,
journey.
my pin.
Wow.
I'm so proud. I wear it all the time, actually.
And Aurora also says, good morning, Coach Jovan. And Chris Anthony says, hi, Marilyn and Jovan. Greetings and glad to join the session. Thank you so much for joining us live.
You're
And
welcome.
for those who are here joining us live, feel free to ask your questions, share your, your takeaway or what you're getting out of this conversation as well. So join us in this conversation, an invitation to join us in this conversation. So having said the experiences that you have from corporate to entrepreneurship, and learning from your ex-boss, your parents, and of course, I actually like, it's interesting that we both follow the same guy, Richard Branson and Tony Robbins as well. So I'm curious to know, what is leadership for you then?
Yeah, leadership is to me has evolved, and the definition for me right now of leader or leadership is really someone who inspires people to become a better version of themselves, right? And I think one key point there that I want to stress is that they actually demonstrate this. You know, the leaders demonstrate this by showing that they are also improving themselves to better themselves. And I think to me that's the answer that I have right now, because um, the people that I follow, the people that I look up to, those who are successful or have achieved a certain success in life, they all show this. They all demonstrate this, and yeah, and that's who I want to be as well. Like someone who inspires people who become better versions of themselves.
Yes, I really love how you actually define leadership. And that's really true. It's our job as a leader to inspire others and um to create more leaders and make a better version of themselves, right?
Mm,
And that's what we do as a leader, and you as a coach as well, right? So thank you
yeah.
for defining that for us. And in my earlier introduction, I made mention around next normal, and we've been hearing this as I would say a trend word, right? um,
Mm,
in the last 2.5 years, or during the pre and now post pandemic, I would say. So
yeah.
in your experience, how would you describe or define next normal?
Yeah, so that's interesting because I think it started as they started talking about the new normal, and then now it's the next normal, which is basically kind of like similar, just defining that post era after COVID-19,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so to me the next normal is really how would I so since I've gone through my journey and transformation as myself as well, and I resonate a lot with this. When I heard your question, I remembered what one of Simon Sinek's video,
Mm-hmm.
which he talked about that during that time it was new normal,
Mm-hmm.
and people is a buzzword, and
Mm-hmm.
Simon Sinek said, but there's always new normal. Like if you look at the past, there's always new normal. There's always change happening. There's always
Mm-hmm.
change happening. And in that sense, it's not really new.
Mm-hmm.
And because change is inevitable, like we need to change in order to become better, to transform ourselves. So
Exactly.
yeah, so this is kind of like something that is meant to happen in that sense. So the
Mm-hmm.
next normal, when we talk about that, I think what COVID-19 has caused is
Mm-hmm.
is for us to accelerate when it comes to, let's say, for example, adaptation in technology. Right now we're doing this interview in online, using a software, whereas in the past they probably would be doing this live and then there's a television crew shooting it, something like that.
Exactly.
And those possibilities, those accessibility that we have right now for technology information is
Mm-hmm.
so much greater, compared to in the past. We accelerated. And but I think for us, especially leaders, right, what we can do is to be really, I would say, present, and adaptable to the situation, and that's how we will. So I would say, instead of
Mm-hmm.
always comparing to, let's say, for example, oh, in the past we used to do this, blah blah blah, and then making that as an excuse. Like,
Mm-hmm.
be present. Like, okay, what's happening right now? As a leader, you need to assess, objectively, what is happening now and how you can move forward, right? And being adaptable to that. I think that's the main key as leaders, what we can do for the next normal.
Thank you for explaining that to us as if you have a magic ball in front of you. And again, next normal, again, I would really agree with you on next normal is about adaptability, right? It's not really just a buzzword, but for us to really like, what's next? Asking ourselves every time, what's next and what we can do better, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that with us. And that leads me to my next questions, which I would say would be the meaty and juicy part of this conversation, right? So from your experience working as a corporate leader and now working with, I believe, like entrepreneurs mostly, as well as some corporate leaders, what would you say would be the top three problems that leaders would normally face?
And because I recently did an interview, with entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
and here in Singapore, and the number one thing that they always, said, or their answer was that they have problems finding talent. So, I
Mm-hmm.
think what they meant was people who people who really, will contribute, in the company when it comes to their knowledge and skills, but at the same time they have a great character. So I think when they were mentioning talent, that's what they meant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that, talent is scarce, right? It's not like there's no talent there, the way they
Mm-hmm.
described it. But they struggle because of, like, matching, and the demand and the supply, etc. So I think that's the first one that came up when I was thinking about that question. And then the second one, I think, is really how leaders, lead the team by empowering them. I think that's something that has always been kind of like, something there, like a challenge, wherein, instead of controlling everything, the leaders empower their team in order to move forward. So I think that's another challenge. And then, third one would be, I what's coming up is effectivity. I think, we I also love productivity. So at some point, went into the rabbit hole of wanting to become so productive, that I even tweaked my diet in order to do that. But, so what I learned in that process is that what's actually more important is being more effective. So effectivity is, I think, is really nowadays, after speaking to fellow entrepreneurs, and I do have, corporate clients as well, like, they are, managers, and we talk about all these things, and keeping their team and themselves, effective, with, especially during the pandemic, when they were working from home. and now it's hybrid. Some companies are still working hybrid, and the effectivity measure is still always in their mind because they want to achieve that even though times are changing. Yeah, so those three things. So the first one is, finding great talent, and then second is leading a team by empowering them, and then the third one is that effectivity. Yeah, keeping.
Activity. Yes. I really love how you've actually summarized these three problems, which um, incidentally quite similar to what I have presented in our leadership and development. I'm not sure if you have any visuals, but just in case, as a request to from some of our audience,
Nice.
I'm just sharing this. This is actually an excerpt of our leadership and organizational development, and it's somehow like explains as well what you have shared earlier, empowering not only your
Mm,
team but also the entire leadership team, right? And again, like what we have agreed upon earlier, based on how you define leadership, it's really so much of how you are
inspiring.
actually
Yeah.
like empowering your leaders or creating more leaders as a leader, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I included here empowered leadership, organizational alignment, because I mean there has to be an alignment to create an effective workplace, right? To ensure the productivity, to ensure effectivity, efficiency within the organization. And again, you mentioned earlier the definition of next normal is basically adaptability, and I would like to add agility as well. And
Mm,
it doesn't matter that you have a vision, you have um, all these three if you don't drive outcomes in the end, right?
yeah.
So I believe this is the four pillars of leadership which I'm sharing to our audience. Yes. So, um, and I mean, you've summarized with us the three problems, right? That most leaders, or whether it's an entrepreneur, I would say, or corporate leaders, I believe this it's the same. uh, like finding the right talent, empowering them, and driving effectivity as well in the process, right? And of course, we will not leave them with these problems. So that leads me to my next question. What are the important leadership capabilities and skills you must have in the next normal in order to continue to lead effectively?
Actually, there's a lot. But okay.
You can choose like your top three.
Before I answer your question, I think I
Mhm.
was reading the comments while you were sharing the slides as well, and
Oh,
I saw a comment from Prakash, and
oh yes, this one.
just wanna highlight that. No, the next one,
The
he's
next
saying
one.
one of the challenges as entrepreneur is marketing, and I super agree with him, and it's really up when we just talk about entrepreneurship or being an entrepreneur, being a business person, whatever the term you want to use, is about marketing, and I think I did a YouTube live last week, mainly like how to say professing like uh,
Mhm.
like putting it up in the pedestal, like marketing is the thing as business owners, right? So we need to be able to communicate clearly what are the products and services we are offering, what the benefits are
Mhm.
to exactly the people who need it. So that's in a gist, that's marketing, right? So
Mhm.
and a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that, and some entrepreneurs do great at that, but not a lot. So yeah, I totally agree with Prakash on that, and I just want to highlight that because he commented a great point. So anyway, answering your questions about the leadership, top leadership skills
Mhm.
that leaders need to have moving into the next normal, or now I think now we are in the next normal. um, I'm since I'm a coach, and I also specialize in communication, right? So I think I mentioned to you the last time we had a meeting is that one of the things I studied is NLP, like
Mm-hmm.
neurobiology. And sorry, neuroscience, not like neurobiology. I'm not a neurobiologist. Just a disclaimer. And so NLP, but I'm fascinated with neuroscience and learning how the brain works. Our conscious mind and unconscious mind works.
Yeah.
And to me, as leaders, that's one of the top skills that leaders need to have, which is communication. The communication skills, right? the
Yes.
ability the ability to speak, to communicate, and and since I highlighted this earlier as well, the ability to coach,
Mm-hmm.
because coaching is really conversation, and asking the right question, asking powerful question. So yeah, so that's the first one, and then the second one, I think Prakash mentioned it as well, and is empathy. So I definitely agree with that. So empathy is, just the ability to understand the
Mm-hmm.
other person in their own point of view, and then that's, empathy. Not being attached to it, but being able to understand it. So I think that's a great skill to have, especially with, times are changing so fast. And then the third one, I also mentioned, this is about flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the ability to adapt, or what you said earlier is that agility to,
Mm-hmm.
so those three things, top three things. And then one of the things we specialize on as well in our company is state management.
Mm-hmm.
So based on a lot of research, successful leaders are really, really great at managing their state. So what do I mean by managing their state? So it's the ability to control your emotions, to manage your emotions. And in fact, I see you laughing a bit, Mary.
So because that's always something that I kind of struggle with. Um, you can see my emotions on my sleeves, as they say. Something difficult for me to, always be in control of. But that's actually the secret to my according to my gene keys.
Ah,
Why
so
once I actually manage to
yes.
to have a
No,
control
there's nothing wrong with, I mean, we're humans anyway, so we do feel emotions, and it's really about how we can harness it. And I also conduct like training for trainers, and one of the things that I teach as a trainer, right, is use the emotion instead of like resisting the emotion. Is that use the because emotions are powerful, right? Emotions, we can use emotions to connect, we can use emotions to communicate. And once we reach, that next level of being able to use our communication, so when I say manage, I don't mean restrict, like suppress it, it's the opposite of what we want. Don't
Mhm.
suppress your emotion, so let it come up and use that emotion. So the successful leaders are have tools in order to do that for themselves, so that they become successful at what they do. So that's the fourth one. I think the last one, I think it's basically just the foundation of personal development, which is self-awareness. So when leaders can develop themselves, their own self-awareness, then it will automatically, like just naturally, it will overflow. It will help people around them. So I think that's one of the key things: self-awareness.
Wow, I really like how you summarize this, and it's generally what we all need, right? Like, um, when you say communications, for leadership skills, right? There are studies that says 6 out of 10 leadership skills is around communications, and that's how important it is.
Yes.
Again, like what you've mentioned, the ability to communicate, ask great questions to your team, right?
Mm.
And at the same time also to listen, and that leads to empathy as well, right? I mean, the ability to be able to listen as well is generally having that empathy of, you know n- also understanding how other people would feel in the
Yeah, and
things.
I wanna you gave a great point, like giving that distinction. And I
Mhm.
think because now everything is so fast, um I think some of us have forgotten to listen, to slow down, to really slow down and
Mhm.
listen to what the other person is saying. And because we have a lot of information in our head because of internet and stuff. And so we our minds immediately form a conclusion even before
True.
that person, finishes whatever they're saying.
Yes.
And I'm sometimes I am, guilty of that as well. I have an impatient nature as well. So
I
yeah,
think that's
so
how some entrepreneurs are. Like sometimes we get impatient and like, I want to get this. We are so passionate and so like driven that sometimes we forget like, oops,
oops,
we're
yeah,
being, yeah. So yeah, and again, we cannot stress more how flexibility is important, especially now. Like most organizations are working on hybrid team or hybrid
mm.
setting, whatever you want to call it, and stake management, where I reacted and you saw that. And again, I mean, like, there's always, two sides of the coin as well, right? It's being vulnerable and
Yes,
open on how you feel, but at the same time being mindful of it, right?
yes,
um,
correct,
um, and that's I guess what you meant, like, be in control of your emotions,
correct,
right?
yeah, correct.
And lastly, and where like everything starts, is with self-awareness, right?
Mm.
Without self-awareness, it's kind of difficult to do the rest of the the things
Exactly,
you
exactly.
mentioned. And I guess this is the most appropriate photo or visual I can share with them. Like, it's
Nice.
it's yeah, it's very interesting that a lot of leaders do expect, like, or a lot of times we tag ourselves, even ourselves, right? We tag ourselves with our designation or job title. I'm an
Mm.
HR, I'm an engineer, I'm a hotelier, or
Yeah.
whatnot, right? But at the same time, like, at one point in time, we do actually like have several roles that we actually like have to fill in. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a solutions provider, and I'm also a sister and daughter to my parents, right?
Mm.
And I'm a friend as well to some, right? So
Yeah.
it's just that, the summary, actually, when you say communication, empathy, it's all about, and the way you summarize as well the top problems, it's all about people, right? And
Mm.
also like understanding that you're actually working with humans,
Yes, exactly.
and how important people centricity is, and like having that as top of mind, right? So that's the reason why I want to share this photo I've shared in a talk that I did recently, because I think it resonates a lot with how you summarize the important leadership skills and capabilities of a leader. And before I proceed to the next question, let me just see, I think there are some more message. Oh, Prakash just saying thank you. Uh, and VC is, I don't know, he might have laughed on my reaction. So, thank you for co- joining us in this conversation. We really appreciate that. And so the next question is actually, what do you believe is the role of learning, leadership, and transformation? I mean, we've been talking around
Yes.
leadership, as well as the importance of learning in the process, right? Like what you've mentioned, it's a journey where it's like in progress, right? We are work in progress, right?
Yes.
So this is probably an invitation for you to summarize the last five questions on, like, what do you believe is the role of learning, leadership, and transformation in order to thrive in the next normal.
Mm. And I think I want to share something that I learned from one of my mentors.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a mentor speaking to entrepreneurs, but I think is applicable to leaders in general as well.
Yes.
because what he shared was, as the entrepreneur, as the owner of the business, we are always the lid on top of, the pot,
Mm-hmm.
and meaning we are the ones stopping
Mm-hmm.
the growth of the
Mm-hmm.
business. And as leaders, this is so applicable because the growth of your group, the growth of the whole company, you are the lid to that. And the only way to put the lid higher or become bigger is developing ourselves. So we develop ourselves through learning, through reading books, through going through courses, or maybe even going for a coaching session. And because coaching session provides that ability to see the blind spots and the things that you are not able to see for yourself. And that's the thing that creates that breakthroughs and transformation, right? So there's a lot of ways of doing that, but understanding that as leaders, when we grow ourselves, when we develop ourselves, we affect the people around us, we affect our team, we affect the company. And that's why I think companies who are very big on learning and development, see the company grow, right? So this is quite commonly known as well. So yeah, so those are my thoughts about that. Like, if you are the lid, then what can you do in order to put yourself higher or grow bigger?
Wow, that's really like, while you were explaining that, I said like, that's really a great analogy, right? And
Yeah,
again, like, a lot of the things that happens within organizations are driven and are based on the directions and an effect of how we actually lead our organizations, our business, and all. And it's important for us to be a learning leader all the time, right? Because continuous learning and improvement only happens when you are open to, growing and developing yourself. And I really appreciate that. I mean, when I got exposed on training when I moved here in Singapore over 12 years ago, I said like, this is amazing gift, not only to myself, because when you become a best version of yourself, like, we've been talking about transformation and how we are passionate about, driving more transformation, not only in our lives but the lives of others. We actually do that because we ourselves like saw the like wow wow
yes,
effect of
yes, exactly.
how transformation can actually affect not only you as a person but also the people in your lives, right? Prakash here said learn from different people, irrespective of age, gender, education. We have diverse people to learn from, and we need to have a learning mindset to grow. Yes,
Exactly.
thank you for thank you for
Yeah,
sharing your insights with us,
I
Prakash,
can
as
I can already sense Prakash is a very open and very willing mind to learn. So yeah, I totally agreed, with that. A lot of the things that stops us from achieving or gaining something is because we are not willing to.
yes.
And it sounds so simple, but a lot of people, like, maybe there's fear, or maybe, past experience told them that it doesn't work or whatever. But it's about that willingness, the willingness to try new things, willingness to get coaching, willingness to, learn from someone new. So all of this starts with that willingness and openness to learn. So I totally agree with Prakash. Thank you for sharing that, Prakash.
Thank you. And so that leads me to my last questions, which I would very are very open questions, and I would normally say Miss Universe questions. So in this case, it's a Mr.
Do I
Universe
need to
question.
post? Do I need to post or something? How do they post?
Yeah. So um I'm curious to know, because these are very open questions and you can actually generally answer anything
Okay.
on these questions, right? So if you have a magic wand and can use it, what will you do with it?
Wingardium Leviosa. I love Harry Potter. So if I had a magic wand, what would I? Oh wow. Very interesting question. I think it will really be related to something that is part of my value. My top value is really about helping people.
Mhm.
And but interestingly, I'm struggling because there's so many people to help with so many different problems, and so um, hmm, wow, I think it's probably okay. Another thing, the reason why I'm struggling is because of mindfulness, right? Like
Right.
I also believe that whatever happens, it happened for a reason, right? So everything happens for a reason, and I wouldn't be here uh, if the bad things that happened in the past didn't happen.
Mhm.
So in that sense, but we'll just play around with this question, and I think for me it will be so interesting if with the magic wand I can increase that self-awareness for people. And not to enlightenment or something like that, but
Mhm.
increase it to a level that they'll be really open and willing to develop themselves, right? Because what I believe is that when people increase their self awareness into that level, then naturally, what they will experience is they want to support and help their fellow human beings, and I think that's a certain level of awareness in there. So that will probably how I would use the magic one.
Wow. I really hope you have a magic wand. I mean, I have a
You do
unicorn
have.
hat in there, a colorful one. So I can lend that to you when we meet up again. But anyway, even without the magic one, I mean, I believe that this is already something that you have been doing through the work that you do, increasing self-awareness. And again, like what I mentioned earlier in your comment also, or summary in the important capabilities, I mean, it all starts with that. And I'm sure you remember like how you laughed at me when I actually shared with you about the luxury brands. Like
Ah,
most people choosing the luxury brands, material things, rather than working on their your
your personal,
inner
yeah.
works or your personal development, right? Like how that,
Yes, yes, yes.
so I mean, I think that's what this means, right? I mean, it's okay that we also invest or get the things that we want in life, but at the same time we need to have that balance of working as well, or getting our inner works more than the external things, right? And
And I want to add into that because that's a great point. And this is something that I would normally ask my
Mhm,
clients as well. How important are you to you?
mhm. Yes, that's a great question.
Right? Like I think a lot of people forget that they are also important. Like, I have clients who are so like they're great parents. They're so dedicated at taking care of their kids. But I
Mhm.
think some point along that journey, they have forgotten that in order to take care of the kids, they
Yes,
need to take care of themselves.
exactly.
Right?
I can relate to that similar story to my experience, and something that I've actually shared in another podcast as well, on the worst investment that you've ever made. Yeah.
Mm.
So where, like, I think I was hospitalized last year because of too much stress and burnout. I
Okay.
have to take care of three children, and
Mm.
I somehow forgotten taking care of myself. And so, like, that's really a great reminder
Right.
from you
Yeah.
for everyone, especially for parents or mommies like me.
Yeah, I always love the analogy of, like when we're in the plane and then, the crew, the air crew would demonstrate like when the plane goes down a certain level,
Mhm,
the
mhm.
oxygen mask falls down, right? And then
Yes.
they always remind, if you are taking care of someone, please
Mm-hmm.
put on the mask self, your
First, for
mask
yourself
first.
first. Yeah.
So that is a perfect analogy for that. So we need to take care of ourselves, put the mask on first, so that
Mm-hmm.
we put the mask on someone else and take care of them. So or else, or else you will fall. you
Yeah,
know.
how can you take care of someone from an empty vessel, like what they said, right? So thank you for that reminder. And that's for every one of us. Because I remember that question also in a recent talk I had. Like, do leaders have the right, have the right, to to have that balance or to get their leave and all those stuff, right? I mean, I said like, and that's the reason why I started with ACE, which is adaptability, continuous learning and empowerment. And that's the reason why you need to empower your team,
Mm,
because that in that way, when people are empowered, you can designate and you can have your leave as well, right? You can
mm,
have your rest as well, right? And every one of us has the right, like what you've mentioned, right, to remember that every one of us to have that, me time, self-love, self-care, right?
yes.
Yeah. So, and my last question now is,
Ooh,
if you
last question. Oh.
oh, yeah, I know, right? If you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would that be? Or maybe because you know to you can best answer this question, please do answer it for us as well.
Could you repeat that?
If you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be? What
No.
question would you ask yourself, probably on a daily basis, I guess? Or what questions are important questions to you, I guess? And that you can best answer, of course, because later on you will have to answer that for us as well.
um, Best question I will answer.
The um what's this what if you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer,
So,
what would it be?
hmm. Wow. Um, and I'll probably use a question that
Mhm.
people can ask themselves as
Yes.
well, because I've asked this, and I don't mean to be kind of like really deep in terms of asking this, but one of the questions I ask myself is, what am I here to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what am I here for? And you can say that it's an existential question, blah blah blah. But one of the things that I learned from this program called Money and You is, so it's from Buckminster Fuller, so one of the like geniuses in our time, is that um, our purpose, um, it's possible that we won't be able to know our purpose. But he said that how the universe works is that if if we set a goal and we move towards that goal, we create a precession. And so a precession looks like, a ripple, like when you drop a stone in the pond, or then it creates a ripple. And so when we move towards our goals in life, we create that precession, and that precession is the one that is affecting our purpose in life. And so when I learned this from Buckminster Fuller, or we call him Bucky, then I kind of like stopped asking, what's my purpose in life? What am I here to do? And because that is the explanation to that. So I just need to set goals that I want to achieve in life, whatever it is, every
Mm-hmm.
one of us. But that creates that procession, that creates that, effect uh, from people around us. And the reason why I'm sharing this as well, because your audience are leaders, and there are always people around them. They affect people around them. And I think leaders need to understand this, that whatever they do, it
Mm-hmm.
affects people. And so when leaders have clear goals, have clear direction and in life, in their own personal development, then it naturally affects other people, which is kind of like affecting that purpose. And what the answer to that question, what am I here to do? Yeah.
Wow, I really love that question. And a lot of times, this is the question that we have to ask ourselves as well. And I made mention around Gene Keys earlier, right?
Hmm.
It's a very interesting profile, and you can actually get a free profile from them. Um, and it's very interesting because it's not only like sharing what your purpose is, it actually shares somehow like a map of
Hmm.
both your gifts, shadows. I don't know if you've heard of it,
Oh,
but
yeah. So I'm familiar with human design, gene keys, this yeah technology.
yeah,
Yes.
right. It's amazing, right? When I read, it's like wow, like
Hmm.
so it's something that we always need to ask from ourselves. And again, that's the importance of leadership, right? And that's why we need more leaders to step up as well, because we create like again a ripple effect in whatever we do, whatever we say. And in living our purpose, we actually not only become our best version, but also we create more leaders and more people to we're interconnected in general. So
Yes.
um
Yeah.
whatever we do, it actually affects others as well, right?
Yep. Totally agree.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate
Yeah.
your deep sharing with us. It's very inspiring. It's very something that you really have to think about as well. And also that are very helpful for our leaders. A great reminder for all our leaders, right? So before we end this session, is there any message that you'd like to leave our audience with?
I think um, I think that the last question is perfect to end that. And I think you capped it off by saying how important being a leader is. So I don't have anything to add. But I think I just want to thank you for inviting me, for giving me the space to really share my experience and my knowledge, because it's part of my mission, which is to be able to help people with with whatever I learned, and things like that. And another thing is, of course, I want to acknowledge you for creating this platform and
Thank
sharing
you.
all this wonderful information to people. So you're doing a great work. So keep it up. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jovan, for your generous comment, and again for your inspiring and important share in this conversation. So thank you so much again, Jovan, and thank you for all our live audience and for those who will be watching us later on. So again, this is also an invitation to continue this kind of conversations to hopefully um, to create an opportunity for us to live a world or a better place, to make the world a better place to live in, right? And
Mm.
again, remember that even the richest investors in the world would say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. So if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you're an excellent leader. So connect with us. Let us know how we can help you. And everyone, stay safe. And thank you again for joining us today. Bye for now.
Bye.